We have a brand new member, Barbara Atkins, who you wave down there. Barbara just moved from Arizona to Dallas, Texas, and she's one of our new virtual members. So welcome, Barbara, and Barbara Abramowitz right there from Massachusetts, and Betsy Worley calling in from New York, and Marcy Fawcett up in north of Boston, up in Swampscott, Mass. Eileen going down to Virginia, and Larry out in San Francisco, and Bruce is of course in Boston, and I'm down in Connecticut. So we're a virtual group, and we've got a number of folks from Wisconsin and other folks who will be listening in or listening to a recording later. So with that in mind, I did have several announcements, but as always, I will write this session up, add the announcements in, and the main one, I wanted to introduce Barbara Penn Atkins, but we just did. So Barbara waved to everybody.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hi, Barbara.
she just came on in the last couple of weeks, and we're thrilled to have her. By the way, there's just a brand new book out. 70 is the new 30.
40.
40, excuse me. 70 is the new 40. And so you'll hear about all that when you see the newsletter coming out. And the other thing I want to mention, we have the feedback on the survey that you all recently did that will be on Thursday, November 8th, 4 to 5. And fascinating results, but we've collated everything. It's all been recorded, and so we will be discussing that survey and what it says and what it will mean as we move into 2019. Other than that, the rest of it will be in announcements that you'll read when you check out either the recording or look at the notes from today. So with no further ado, we have a thrill to have Mark Peterson with us. Mark is the author of an important book, Your Life, Your Death, Your Choice. And it's about all the decisions that are so important in end of life, but also often aren't asked. And that's been his work for decades. He's a subject matter expert. If you read his intro in the messages that came out inviting you to this meeting, you'll see the testimonials. I mean, we only used one small fraction of the ones that were there from all over about the work and the impact that his work has had on individuals and families. So Mark, we thank you for the privilege of you presenting this material to us. And since we are starting late, we'll go, so you take the full 45 minutes and we'll go to 5:15. If you need to click off anyone, just do so, and know that you have the recording you can listen to later. So Mark, welcome, and take over.
How about it, huh? Okay, thank you, and thank you especially to Bruce and to Joyce for their support and invitation for me to join you and share a little bit of my experience. I'm fully aware that I'm going to be frustrated because there's more that I'd like to say than there will be time for, and I'm going to be struggling to balance conversation with content. We have such a short time, and if there's specific questions that you have, I'm happy to hear them. I may have to say I'll answer that later, or I can do that by email because our time is so short. So that's basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to present to you in the next few minutes some of the elements of what I've concluded are and written about in terms of the 6 chapters that are in my book, and each of them presents its own challenge. The full title of my book is Your Life, Your Death, Your Choice: How to Have Your Voice to the End of Your Life. And the reason I mention that is because it's very easy for your voice to be taken away. And it won't be taken away if you have put a concerted effort into sorting out what your choices are and having conversations with people. I'll get into a little more detail with that in just a minute. To start with, however, I'm wondering if I could ask, how many of you have completed advanced medical directives? Can you just raise 1, 2, 3, 4?
And Josephine, you don't see me, but I've done that.
Okay, so 5. That's actually very good. That's better than the average. The average number, about only 20% of people, 20 to 30% of people have completed advanced medical directives. Interestingly, however, 80% of people say they'd like to die at home, but only 20% do. that tells you something pretty powerful about how little control there can be in many situations. And I'm all about people being in control. I guess you can call me a control freak if you want. I want my choices. I don't want someone else to choose for me. And the only way I can do that is if I am very clear about what I want, and I'm very clear with my kids and my doctor about what I want. If I'm not clear with them, they're going to start to say, well, gee, maybe we should try this. Maybe what is it he wanted? And I will give you some references that will, in the course of this, that will be very powerful for you to go to. One is a Netflix on called Extremis, a 20-minute documentary that was nominated for an Academy Award. Do you know, for those of you who have your advanced medical directives, do you know where they are now?
Yes.
Do you know who else has them?
My directors.
Huh?
My directors, the people that are named.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But how about other people? Are there family members who are not necessarily going to make choices for you, but need to know what your choices are? So think about this. When you go into, if you went into a hospital and you were unconscious and your proxy, which is the same as your healthcare agent, isn't present, they're going to ask the first person that's in that room what you would want. And if they don't know what you want, then how do they know how to direct the medical staff what to do? So that's those are just some examples. It's very dicey. It's much more dicey. And when we're under the kind of stress we're under, when someone's life hangs in the balance, quite honestly, a lot of us freak out. And one of the things that we hear a lot is do everything, which is sometimes an absolute disaster for people. So, last question for you. How many of you have had a conversation with your doctor about your directives? Not many. Okay, how many, how about with your family members who are not going to make choices for you? Sort of, sometimes. So as you can see, this is an issue that's very critical and really needs to be worked on. I actually have, I'm on a separate computer because I have notes here, and here we go. So my book was written based on teaching for Temple for since 2011, and the book was done because actually Temple was getting pretty sick and tired of the amount of duplicating I asked them to do, among other things. But at any rate, I felt like I was ready to do it, and the book didn't take long to write. So I just wanted to mention that, and if you need to communicate with me, you want to find the book, you can go to www.havingyourvoice.com, and you can find out about the book, and you can see my blogs, which are there. I've written a great deal. And provided links to interesting articles and so on, and videos and podcasts and the like. Now, there were 3 questions that were asked, pre-questions, and I'm going to just kind of go through those. The first one was, help me help a client who wants to have these important discussions, but the rest of the family is clearly not interested. Shall I tell her to write it out and keep it with someone else? Try again later? What do we do? So that's one. That's basically family denial. The second is client denial. The wife is a caretaker and a doer and organizer of everything. The husband is ill with cancer and can't handle reality of the situation. So should the wife seek closest family members to her husband to try to talk to him? How does she get him to connect? And I'm going to tell you, in both of these cases, there's no guaranteed answer. But there are things that can be done, and there are ways in which these things can be taken care of. And the third question is, are wills valid that a person creates themselves and has notarized by 2 witnesses? I'm not a lawyer, So I don't know that I can answer that question directly. But I would suggest that if you create your own forms, create your own designation for who a proxy is, you're a little bit at risk, and you should take whatever you do to a lawyer and ask them to say, is this going to protect me? Because I have had clients or students who took my class and then decided that they wanted to modify the forms I provided. And when they did, and they took them to the lawyer said, these forms are not good the way you've done them. So the answer to that is, I think you can consult a lawyer to create your own forms. So there's three basic things that are really, really essential for you to do. The first is you have to designate legally a healthcare agent, someone that you say, this is the person I want to make choices for me. And virtually every state provides a simple one-page form that allows you to designate who your healthcare agent is. You can go online to do it. You can go to the ABA, the American Bar Association, type in something about healthcare agent or medical proxy form designation. And you shouldn't designate just one person. Here's why. That person may not be around when you have a stroke. So you need to have a backup. And that backup information, all as well as the text numbers, cell phone numbers, and all of that, that all needs to be nailed. And I have forms that I provide in the book that allow you to do that. The second thing you have to do is have a good solid forms that are witnessed. Now, I'm going to talk about this a little later, but all forms are not created equal. Some forms are much, much less detailed than they need to be. And as a result, there are holes that can cause serious problems. And the third thing you have to do is, once you've got the forms completed, once you have designated who your proxy is going to be, and proxy is a healthcare agent, I'm going to use that term pretty consistently, then you have to have in-depth conversations with your family and loved ones, children if you have them, sisters or brothers if they're important to you, and say, look, this is what I want. And if you don't do that, you're going to be into a really complicated situation that is going to cause trouble for you. So any questions before I move on? I know I'm going fast, I'm sorry, but
That's okay, we're with you.
okay, good. All right.
I have something to bring up, actually, it's a question.
Great.
It's Larry. And maybe it's just to bring it up, but I know that, for example, some people who don't have families, like myself and other gay people,
Right.
it's even more important because we have, you might end up in the hospital and you want your friend or your partner to be the one, but they call your sister or your brother in LA or something because it's relatives. And so it's important to have it.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. So it's doubly important in those situations. And I have a number of good friends who've been in the program with me, have studied with me, doctors who are really concerned about making sure that they have a good agent who'll be able to do what we want.
Well, wait a minute. So stick with Larry's question for a second. Does that mean that if a friend came, he or she would be listened to by a medical professional, even though they are not family?
That's
If
correct.
that friend was designated.
Yeah, but in some cases in the South, you might not find that they would be respected.
That's why we don't live in the South. That's why we stay in California.
That can be a problem. It shouldn't be, but you really need to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed.
Yeah.
It's very important that you have a proxy and an alternate. And if any of you saw the movie The Big Sick, The Big Sick was out, I think, last spring. And in this particular movie, it's the story of a fellow who's having a relationship with a woman and they break up, and then she gets very, very sick and he takes her to the emergency room, and the doctors come out and they say to him, she needs to be ventilated. Would she want that? He's not even in a relationship with her at the time. And so it displays this enormously complicated, powerful dynamic that can take place. So we really need to have people on board. So I'm going to show you a video now. Believe it or not, this is a video from the book. My book is an ebook and it has 8 or 10 videos in it, as well as podcasts and a ton of articles. And this video is by Stephen Kiernan. It's 2 minutes and 48 seconds long. It's not a big deal, but it says a great deal because the video is about the panic that occurs when you get a designation of a serious disease. Here comes a video. I'm getting no sound.
Right, no sound here either.
Still no sound.
Is the video sound on the actual,
Listen, yes.
In
Yeah,
my
you would think-
experience,
you would think so, but
for your thing,
You hear it now?
easier to resist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nope, lost it again.
It's not playing.
Especially when there's so much noise and clutter and distraction. No, what you need is another surgery. I'm in charge here, and I say you need chemo. In my experience, radiation is the right answer for your thing. You know, we have this new medicine. Maybe you need to try shark's venom. We're doing stem cell stuff now. You know, a little gene therapy to take care of you. I mean, you just hear all this stuff. It's like, okay, if you can make the don't know 5 years away instead of 5 months away, okay. I'm terrified. You're the expert. I'm only going to do this once. You've seen it a lot of times. Help me do it well. Human nature, in other words. There's no cure for human nature. Nor should there be. And yet, now, you do see it coming. Oh, a guy who was a former next-door neighbor of mine is about 4 months past a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. So what's he got? 4 months more? 6. He doesn't have a year, right? For pancreatic, he doesn't have a year. Now that we know that, a little bit of the don't know is gone away. Brad knows. So even though I fully accept that I'm going to go, I'd love it if I had a little time to plan. I don't need years, you know, but I think a little time. There'll be fences that I'll want to mend. There'll be people that make mistakes like anybody. There'll be people I want to connect. There'll be conversations I want to have. So then you do have something to give you energy and to make you think about the don't knows and how you want to get from here to there.
Okay, you can. Okay, consider the conversation as a wonderful video that was done and has won 22 awards. It's a very, very nice video. And Stephen Kiernan wrote a book in the 90s, which was prescient, basically saying, and the book is Rescuing End of Life from the Medical Profession. And so he begins this by saying, maybe more people don't go to hospice because they don't know what's going to happen, or they don't want to know what's going to happen. And so what he's showing in this is the panic. Maybe we should try shark's venom. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should try immunotherapy. Maybe this. Maybe we should have radiation. And the doctors say, I'm the doctor, you need radiation. And the other doctor says, I'm the surgeon, you need surgery. And the oncologist says, I'm an oncologist and I want chemo. I believe chemo is the best for you. And we, because we're so terrified, are rendered pretty helpless to make effective choices. And so basically, we will fall into a dependency on the doctor. So, and he demonstrates it. He says, you're the doctor, you see this all the time, tell me what to do. And so then we lapse into it. Now, let's say it's a situation where I have a stroke and I'm unconscious and my kids don't know what's going on. And so the doctor comes in and says, well, he's had a stroke. We can do this, we can do that, we can do the other thing. And if they don't know what I've decided or what I want, what's going to happen? They're going to guess. And if they guess wrong, or they guess something that really results in a bad result for me, we don't have much choice, do we? This is why it's so important. I've got a second computer that keeps driving me crazy because it's shutting down my notes. And so here we go. All right, I got them back again. Sorry about that. So what did you think about that video when you saw it?
I thought that I needed to have this conversation with more people, but I don't want to.
Congratulations. Welcome to the human race. Nobody wants to have this conversation, and that's why so often people don't choose to have the conversation, and the effect is, in the long run, it's like sticking your head in the sand.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
And yet, when my parents passed away a number of years ago, they hadn't taken the time to discuss what they wanted. And so it threw the three of us into disagreement, and the conflict was horrible. And we all felt like we were doing what our parents would have wanted, and we all had different opinions. It was horrible.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is exactly the thing I'm talking about. And this is why you've got to have everybody on the same page. And then one of the questions is, what happens when the family doesn't want to do this? They don't want to have the conversation. I have two really interesting examples. One was a woman who was in my class, and she came up to me afterwards and she said she told her daughter she was taking a class on advanced medical directives and end-of-life planning. And the daughter went right up to her and she put her nose right to her face and she said, Mom, you're not going to die. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Mom, you're not going to die. Well, guess what? Everybody we're looking at here is going to die. And the question is, do you want to embrace it, or do you want to do something else?
Aren't you a Debbie Downer?
Yeah, I am. I know this is nasty, but I'd rather you get the lowdown rather than not have it. So that's an example.
I have a couple of questions.
Go for it.
I'm actually interested in having this conversation and getting ready to have the conversation. I have some documents that I've done about 10 years ago. And unfortunately, for my husband, his healthcare proxy passed away.
Oh.
So it's really brought this issue up of having some depth of people. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to think for myself, my main healthcare proxy after my husband is also somebody who's not in good health. How many backups can we have?
As many as you want, but in your situation where the people that are now primary are not in great shape, you should find another person, maybe a younger person. And that can be very dicey, because if you say, well, I'm going to pick my son John, and his sister Barbara is really going to be annoyed by that, then you get into a family dynamic which causes people to sometimes think, I think I'll talk about that next week, which becomes next month, which becomes next 6 months, which becomes never. And so it's really important to understand that there are really powerful dynamics associated with that.
Right. So, and maybe you're going to get to this, but the next level is what really is understanding our options, and thinking yourself, well, what do I really want? Because I don't know what my situation is going to be.
We're going there.
We're going there. Great.
We're just about to go there.
Okay.
And I'm very cognizant of time, so I'm rushing, but
No, we're fine.
okay, good. So selecting the right proxy is important, and just to touch base on a couple of aspects of that, the right proxy is someone who can go toe-to-toe with the doctor. The right proxy is a person that can negotiate questions amongst members of a family where there are conflicts, and they're going to be able to manage conflict. And they have to be tough enough to make life and death decisions for you, and not get talked out of them. Those are really critical issues. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm sorry, I'm moving fast here, but I encourage you. You can find my email address if you want to write specific questions to me at my website. So selecting good forms is really important, and not all forms are created equal, and some of them are terrible. There's one out there that has been used 10 million times called 5 Wishes. Some of you may have seen 5 Wishes. It's really soft. It lacks a lot of detail. It doesn't tell you stuff that you really need to know. Good forms the form that I've adapted and created has 12 choices, 12 different procedures, including CPR, ventilation, tube feeding, cancer, and a whole bunch of things, and what you want to do. And for each one of these procedures, you can say, I want, I don't want, I'm unsure, or I want a trial, and if no change, stop. Now, most of the forms don't have the I want a trial, and if no change, stop. And many forms will say, if you have other things you want to say, please write it in the margin or put it on an extra piece of paper. It's not incorporated directly into the form, and I think that's a mistake. So in the forms that I use, the last page is wide open, and you initial what you want in each of the 12 choices. Then on the last page, you can put an asterisk, and on the last page you can say, when it comes to ventilators, I really don't want to have a tracheotomy. I'm going to get right into that right now. And I'm not, because of time, I can't possibly go through the 12 choices with you. But let me just talk to you a little bit about the choices.
Mark, Larry had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Larry.
That's okay. Yeah, if I could just ask. So, while we were doing this, I just made up an emergency contacts form for my wallet, because I was thinking, wow, I don't even have it in my wallet with my contacts. So I just typed them all up and put their addresses and emails and phone numbers and everything, and I stick it in my wallet. Okay, great, that's in my wallet. When I go to the hospital, my directive or this long form that you're talking about is not going to be there in my wallet. That's correct. Where's it going to be?
Good question. Here in Philadelphia, I'm not in Philadelphia right now, I'm in Maine, but in Philadelphia, my forms are at the University of Pennsylvania in an online portal. So in some cases that works. In a lot of cases it doesn't. When we travel internationally, we carry our forms with us. They're actually right on the refrigerator right here in Maine when we're here. And we also have local docs that we've given the forms to. But they aren't always readily accessible. Every one of our kids has a complete set of our forms. And they are, and they know exactly what we want. So that's really, you need to have something like that. In an emergency, if I'm unable to speak, please call so-and-so, call or text so-and-so.
Yeah.
And texting is really a very important thing nowadays if you have it.
Mark, are there any online apps that maintain the form that you could just simply have on your wallet? You could have in case of emergency.
Yeah, there are some apps of that sort, and they are actually quite helpful. But people have to have the password to get into them. So if you don't have the password in your wallet, no one's going to be able to access what's there. It's a lot more complicated than people think, and it's really very important to understand that. So at any rate, the thicket is getting bigger and deeper, isn't it? I mean, it's complicated stuff. And there are actually some very good online resources where for like $125, you can have all of your forms uploaded for 5 years. And that's actually, I provide that in the appendix, access to some of those. And there are more and more of those coming out nowadays. We've talked a little bit about family. We've talked about and family resistance. Doctors are also pretty resistant in some cases. Now, I have no interest in painting a broad brush of negativity about doctors and nurses. There are great doctors and there are great nurses who know how to have these conversations and are very good at doing it. But there are others who are not that way and they view you dying as their failure. And there are doctors, I have heard this more than once, who have said, she's not dying on my watch. And in some cases, there's one particular case that I remember well of a woman who was in the last stages of lung cancer and was having trouble breathing, and she said she didn't want to do this anymore. And the resident was good with just making her comfortable, but her doctor got called, and he said, under no circumstance she's going to go on a ventilator because no one dies on me. And so, in fact, she did go on a ventilator and lasted for 6 weeks. And being on a ventilator is not good. Not good at all. So at any rate, I just want to be very clear that you don't know whether your physician is going to be good until you meet with them and say, here's my forms. I want you to look at those forms, and I want you to tell me you understand and agree with those. Some doctors are going to say, I'm not comfortable agreeing to let you die. So that sort of thing happens. Now, of course, the last thing, and it should be in some ways the first, is your own fear. We're all afraid of dying. We're all afraid of losing control. And because of that, it causes us to do a lot of things that are kind of weird and unpleasant. And so dealing with the fear, I've done whole presentations just on fear and decision-making at the end of life. And I just can't go into that. But I can show you one other video if you'd like to see it. We're at 5 o'clock. It's a 5-minute video. And Bruce will run that video now, and then we'll talk a little bit about it afterwards. This one really displays something about how doctors feel and how patients deny.
When serious illnesses take us to hospitals, we look to doctors for answers. But what happens when there are no more cures?
Do you want to call her daughter?
Zara Cooper is an emergency surgeon with palliative care training at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. She frequently must deal with patients surprised that they're nearing the end of life.
It's certain that everybody's going to die. There's no certainty as to when. Clear from the CT scan what's going on. And frequently, as an emergency surgeon, I'm meeting somebody for the first time, and they have no idea that they could die from their disease. Whether that's because nobody's told them or they're in denial, I don't know, but it's always a surprise.
Clyde Earle has been undergoing treatment for advanced cancer for a year. He's now suffering with intense pain. The prognosis is not good.
Well, you're in good hands here, Dr. Cooper.
I know.
Dr. Cooper wants to talk to Mr. Earle and his wife, Audrey, about what comes next.
The rumor has it you guys are newlyweds. Is that right, huh? Yeah. That's great. Now, what happened before you came into the hospital?
One morning, I had so much pain, I could not take it. I was in deep trouble.
Yeah.
With pain. Yeah.
What I discovered was that he and his wife had the expectation that he had many more months. So let me ask you, what do we expect to happen after you leave the hospital?
We're going fishing.
Okay.
We're going up to house in Maine.
Okay.
And then after Maine, we'll go back to the house in Florida.
Right.
Now, has anybody talked to you about hospice or having hospice nurses take care of you, or is that part of the plan?
Women, if we need it.
Right.
I know the procedure.
Yeah. When I said hospice, it was as if I was talking to somebody who only thought that hospice would be necessary when he was just about to die. My impression was that that was the goal, was to get him to hospice. I think the lesson learned is that you have to ask. You can't make those assumptions because oftentimes patients and their families aren't at all where you think they are and aren't at all where you think they should be.
But Zara Cooper had at least started a conversation about the end of life.
We are here to take care of you, okay? All right.
As Clyde Earle's condition worsens, Dr. Cooper brought in Kathy Salvaggi, a senior palliative care physician whose expertise is in end-of-life care. She would now take up the hospice discussion.
She and I had a conversation about goals of care. And
when Dr. Salvaggi came down to the ICU to meet them, I said, you've got a lot of work to do. She said, I know.
And it was really important to take his wife aside and talk about what I was seeing.
Hi.
All right.
No time to ask a question like that.
I know.
Hi. Good morning. It's been like this.
What? I know you don't.
I don't know.
It is a process. And I think it is very hard to come to the realization that you're dying. These are really important conversations that should not be waiting the last week of someone's life.
I'm not sure I'm going to get him back to me. But let's face the truth.
I don't think we are.
No.
I think he's going to be here with us.
Yeah, I know he is. I was in my own world. Thinking if we can fix my heart. Oh, I knew better. I knew what was ahead. And I didn't share it with him.
It's those moments when people show that they want to talk about it. Once somebody gives you that kind of opening, in palliative care, we're trained to take that opening and to identify that as a moment where you can help somebody. Whereas I think the natural inclination is to say, we're going to get him better. You're going to get him home because it makes you feel better.
Okay, that's the end, Bruce. So that's pretty heavy stuff, isn't it? But what's in here that I see that's really important is, first of all, that she says, I was in my own world. I didn't want to think this was happening. And so she goes through that whole process. And then I love those two women. I think the nurses, the doctors are fabulous. And they bring tears to my eye every time I see them. They're like angels trying to help this this woman and this gentleman who is in so much trouble. And the other thing that Zara Cooper says, which is very important, is we like to give you good news, so we're going to give you good news whenever we can, because it makes us feel better. Well, when it makes them feel better, then they're more inclined to not deliver bad news, or as bad a news as they need to, or as straight a news as they need to. That's really critical. And so having a doctor that is going to listen to you and is going to appreciate what you're saying is really critical. And unfortunately, you know, when you go to the hospital now, you're not treated by your doctor. You're treated by a hospitalist who doesn't know you. Or you're treated by an interventionist who doesn't know you, so it's really, really critical that your doctor know who you are, and you find out whether your doctor even does rounds in a hospital anymore. A lot of people don't know that. Doctors sometimes don't do rounds. They just practice out of the hospital. So these are a few of the situations. Now, the next two chapters in my book, chapters 3 and 4, focus entirely on consequences of choices. And what I've done, which is not like just about anybody else, is I have actually done research on what the consequences of choices are and give you information on them. And I'm only going to mention a couple because our time is short. The first is CPR. How many people want CPR if their heart stops? One. Some of you are not sure, I'll bet, right? Betsy, maybe, who knows? Okay, here's what the story is with CPR. When you watch 911 or ER or Chicago Med or one of those things, do you know what the proportion of people is who recover from CPR? 73%. They actually did research. They had people watch and see how many times people were revived with CPR. The actual percentage is 3%. 3% of people recover from heart stoppage. And this was a study of 65,000 patients in Japan in a hospital. There's another 4% who survive, but they're brain damaged. If you don't have blood pumping to your heart, within 4.5 minutes, your brain begins to die. And so there's a good chance that you are going to wake up with brain damage. There's a 93% chance that you're not going to survive. And some of us in this group are old enough that it's probably less likely that we'll survive. It might be only 5% of us will survive. And if you do survive, one of the things that you'll have as a part of that survival is brain damage, fractured ribs, punctured lung, burns from a defibrillator. These are all consequences of the choice of saying, yes, I want CPR. So thinking about this, means that you really need to think about what you want, and it's not an easy choice to make. So just mentioning that because that's one example of what goes on. I'm going to tell you about one more out of the 12 because we're running low, short on time, and that's ventilators. A ventilator is a breathing machine. It breathes for you when you can't breathe for yourself. And it's a very, very effective way to get air into your lungs, but it's also very, very unpleasant. And it oftentimes a doctor will paralyze you so that you can't move your arms because they don't want you to tear the tubes out, which everybody who's on a ventilator wants to do, for most everybody. And as a result of that, there's some very, very kind of draconian things that are done to you to protect you. And they are trying to protect you. There's no question about it. But it's bad. Now, here's where I mentioned this short documentary, which features a woman named Jessica Zitter, who is actually speaking in New York next week. And she's written a book called Extreme Measures. But the video is 20 minutes long, and it's called Extremists. And you will see her trying to talk to families, and you'll see people on ventilators, and you'll learn a lot about what being on a ventilator is like. And the rule of thumb with a ventilator is if you are on it for 2 weeks, then they want to do a tracheotomy, which means a permanent hole here to pump air in and out of your chest. And with that, you can't speak. And with a ventilator and with a tube down your throat, you also can't eat. So you have to be fed with a nasal tube or a gastric tube directly into the stomach. So there's a lot of things that people don't tell you about, which bother the heck out of me, because how do you make an effective decision if you don't know what's going on? And how many of you have found yourself hearing or saying aloud, you know what? The doctor never told me about that side effect. Now, whether it was a side effect that he did tell you about and you didn't hear it because none of us like to hear this stuff, or it was another. I've lost my train of thought here. It was a situation where he just kind of soft pedaled the side effects. We don't know, but it's very, very important, and that's why it's always good to have someone else with you when you go in for a conversation with a doctor. So I could talk about feeding tubes and chemotherapy and invasive diagnostic tests and major surgery, minor surgery, all kinds of things. Those are all covered in the book as aspects. They're not the only ones, though. How about the ICU? The second chapter I have, the first chapter is those 12 choices. The second chapter is other choices that people have, and the ICU is one of them. And there's a syndrome that is now talked about called PICS, post-intensive care syndrome, where people come out with cognitive dysfunction and with trauma and anxiety. And I've got a really interesting video on that that was done by PBS about 6-9 months ago, I think. That's very, very powerful. A doctor saying he would never in his life go into a hospital again, and never into an intensive care unit. He'd rather die than do that. So there's a set of them. There's another one called clinical trials. Now, doctors will say, oh, we've got a clinical trial for you. And I have a good friend, a woman I know, who was talked into doing a clinical trial for her mother who had brain cancer, similar to Ted Kennedy and John McCain. And she was talked into doing a clinical trial which involved her mother having to have radiation on her brain. And she ended up basically a vegetable for the last year of her life. One doctor was excited because she'd survived for 3 years, but the last year she was 95% not there. Or is that a choice? You know, And that's where sometimes you need to have some thought and some conversation with your proxy and your family about how much treatment you want and what's going to be the effect of it. Am I getting you worse, more depressed?
Yeah.
I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
This is Josephine, and I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah. Right now on my advanced health directive, I think it's just an overall category, no heroic treatment. But it sounds from what you're saying like I really should be much more specific.
You are absolutely correct. Yeah. Because heroic treatment means nothing until you say, this is what I want. And Atul Gawande in his brilliant book, Being Mortal, says the most important question is what matters most to you. And that should be the thing that defines every choice that you make, what matters most. I have a very interesting video about a young man, 31 years old, who chooses to end his life because he's broken 2 vertebrae right up here. And a comparison of a 72-year-old man with the exact same injury who chooses to live for 4 years. So people are going to make different choices. I have no investment in anyone making any choice that they don't want to make, but I have a great investment in people knowing what the consequences of their choices are. So I want to move on very quickly because we're running out of time. Chapter 5 of my book focuses on dementia. Huge problem, getting much larger over the next 10 or 15 or 20 years, and one that really, really needs to be addressed in some detail. Because dementia can cost about $100,000 a year if you have to be in a facility. There's a absolutely fantastic video done by CBS 60 Minutes. And this video you can get online and watch. It's about 12 minutes long, and it follows a couple over 10 years from the early onset dementia of the wife and the husband saying, I am going to take care of her. She did everything for me, and she deserves it, and I'm going to take care of her. To about 10 minutes into the video, he says, I'm considering suicide. I can't handle it anymore. And so when you're thinking about these things, and we naturally do this, we think both about, well, what do we want for ourselves, but what do we want for our family and our kids? And do we have the resources for the things we want? How are people going to afford? None of my children could afford to put me in a nursing home with dementia for 5 years, let alone 1. And so, those kinds of things are really, really critical to be thinking about. And here's another example of forms that I wanted to just mention to you briefly. There's a lawsuit that took place in Oregon about, I'd say 15, 16 months ago. A woman had been in the nursing home for 10 years, and she had stopped eating. She didn't want to eat anymore. And she had basically said in her advance directives that if she didn't want to eat, she shouldn't be expected to eat. However, the nursing home said, well, look, when we put a spoon up to her mouth, she opens her mouth. So that means she wants to eat, right? I personally say wrong. That's what little kids do. It's a reflex. So he took the nursing home to court, and Oregon, the state of Oregon, which is probably the most progressive and the first state to have the kind of laws that allow for death with dignity, said no, she had to be fed because the form wasn't detailed enough. Now, the state of New York has just created, some people in the state of New York have just created a very specific form about dementia and feeding. And and I'm adding it to the appendix for people to download so that they can complete that form if they want. It has much more detail to it. So I'm going to close with just, there's a final chapter which has to do with death with dignity, and it has interviews with Brittany Maynard, who was a woman, 28 years old, who took her life about this time, November 1st, 3 years ago. And Brittany had a glioblastoma, and she was having more and more seizures, and she declared that she wanted to end her life, and she couldn't in California. So she moved to Oregon so she could receive the medicine, and she took it and passed away. Her husband talks about what her death was like in an interview with Oprah Winfrey, and she talks about why she's making that choice. They're very, very beautiful videos that give you a lot of insight. So I think that I better stop there, and it's 5:21. Maybe we should have just a few moments for some questions or thoughts or whatever. And I'm sorry if I've unsettled you or depressed you or made you anxious, but it's a depressing, anxiety-provoking subject.
I'm just
Okay, does anybody have a question? Or Barbara, you look like you've got one. Wait, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Barbara.
Okay.
Bottom.
There you are.
I did it. Great presentation. Yes, anxiety provoking, but so important. I've actually recently contacted my lawyer to go over all of our forms, so this is quite helpful. My main question is your book. Did you say it was an ebook?
That's correct.
Okay.
So you can read it on your computer or a tablet.
And it's on Amazon.
Computer, then, huh?
It's on Amazon.
You can also get it from Amazon, and if you do get it from Amazon and read it and like it, I'd be grateful for a review. I don't have many reviews on it. A lot of people buy it directly through my website. So,
which would you prefer?
What I really like is reviews, but you can buy it through Amazon or you can buy it through the website. I don't want to huck that.
Well, I think it's so important, not only for me personally, but for clients that we work with. And
yes,
I have one of these directives. When you said advanced directives, I didn't know do I have something that's advanced, but it's very general. And yeah. I think having a book that goes through exactly what you're doing, it's such a service. So here's what happens. Here are the results of having a, CPR or this or that procedure. It really helps us make more informed decisions, and what a gift that is. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so concerned that so many of the websites, so many of the places that are offering this don't do it. Here's an example. This is what does CPR work, and it says CPR does not help as much as most of us think. It works best if you're healthy with no illness. It can be given to you within a few minutes, if it can be given to you within a few minutes of when your heart and lungs stops breathing. That's good, but that's pretty vague.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think some of the stats are really important for people to understand.
Yeah.
Thank you for the compliment. I would just offer one other thing. I have lawyers who basically say, I can't stand doing advanced medical directives. They really make me depressed and upset. So I try to hurry through them.
Yeah.
I
think the other important point that I want to add here is that you may have it, but they need to be updated.
All the time.
So, I don't know, when you're a certain age, should we do it every 5 years, every 8 years?
Absolutely. At your age, you should do it every 5.
Yeah. Because as I said, my husband's, next in line passed away. He had the glioblastoma. We went through that with him, and we're trying to identify younger friends. It's not that easy.
That's right. That's right.
one of the things that I was thinking about, Mark, and thank you very much. It was a really great presentation, frightening, but great. And I was thinking about my kids who are adults, they're young adults, and thinking about, I'm sure being young adults, they don't contemplate, but my oldest son is a rock musician. He's flying all the time. Guaranteed he has no will at all.
No directives, yeah.
No directives, no, and he's not married, has no kids, so there's nothing there to protect him should anything happen. And so, another question I would guess I have is how to talk to.
Okay, here's what you need to do, and this is important for all of us who have younger adults who are obviously invincible, and nothing ever happens to them, right? What you do is you say, I've got one question for you, and this is a great way to start a conversation for yourself. I have one question for you, and that question is, if you were in a permanent, if you had an accident or something and you were in a permanent vegetative state, and doctors didn't think you would ever recover from it, what would you want me to do for you? And then, once you've got them talking about it, then you can say, okay, here's what I want. And so then you can begin the conversation. And the best conversations, and the way to start conversations is to have a shared, third element. Like you watch the Kiernan video, and you say, would you want hospice if you had pancreatic cancer? I would. Or would you want us to try everything to make you get better? So should we try the shark's venom? So there are ways to do it, and the whole book is structured around, this is something you can think about, this is how you talk with your kids about it, or your loved ones. And it's reflection, conversation, reflection, conversation, reflection, conversation. The whole book has text boxes with those in it.
Well, fantastic. Thank you very much, Mark. Before we close, does anyone else have a last question for Mark or anything that needs?
Absolutely. Just one, Mark, are these forms in the book, because I just purchased the book, are they downloadable?
Yes,
and
they are.
Are they something that can be updated, or is that what's there, whatever vintage or whatever?
Well, you can download them. You can download them and print them. And once they're downloaded, you can reprint them if you want to, if you decide to change your mind. Or all you need to do is take like a Sharpie and put an X through it and say, and then put your initials and the date of the updated thought you have on what you'd want for treatment. Okay. And then there's a notes page, the third page, and you can write in the notes, I changed my mind, I don't want a ventilator. Or I've changed my mind, I do want a ventilator. Or I've changed my mind, I don't want chemotherapy, or whatever. So you can change it right on the form, and you know how lawyers love to have you put initials in the margins?
Yeah.
These forms have a place for you to put your initials in a box. So if you want to change it, you cross out that box, you put your initials in the one that you want, and then probably good to write a little, date it, because if you don't date it, they'll say, well, maybe that was before, maybe someone monkeyed with these forms. You get all those kinds of problematic issues to attempt to avoid. So
perfect.
That
answers it. Does anybody want the last word? Then I'm just going to recommend everybody go out and do something that you find joyful.
Well, I'm definitely going to order the ebook. Thank you.
Yeah, oh, me too.
Yeah, Josephine, it's worthwhile. I did, and it is excellent. You learn things, you think, oh my gosh, I never thought about this. And then once you get in the conversation, it's amazing. Friends want to see it, family wants to see it, and then it starts the vicarious dialogue that we never would have gotten going unless I said, look at this page. And there it is. And it's so it's well spelled out. Mark, you did an excellent job.
Thank you. Well, and looking at the video, sharing the videos is a very, very good way to have conversations, because with the video, you can say, well, if that were you, what would you want? And if you always turn it around to asking them what they want, then they're more receptive to you saying, well, here's what I'd want. And that's how the conversation links.
Well, my thanks and my apologies to all for the inconvenience today. I really do think it was probably pilot error on my part. I was on a Zoom call or a prior meeting, and I keep thinking maybe I just didn't sign out of that meeting, and that's what caused the issue. So my apologies, and it won't happen again.
Don't worry, you've been great, and I appreciate all the help you've provided.
Bruce, we wouldn't even have this capability if it wasn't for you. Give us a
Amen.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good.
So thanks all for being attentive and for hanging on despite the grimness of the topic. But,
No, it's valuable.
It's really important to know about it, because it has to do with your life and your suffering or avoiding suffering, and that's really critical for you.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Have a good night, all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, take care. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Barbara going to talk about her book.
Hello.
Barbara, did you have a book you were going to talk about?
Oh, my book on 70 is the new 40s.
I was just curious. You had mentioned it. If you wanted to, I don't know if we have time, but I'd love to hear more about it.
Well, maybe we can arrange something, because I actually have to go and end the meeting. So
you know what, Barbara? Barbara, I'll talk to you. We'll do a special program, Eileen, so you'll hear more from Barbara.
Okay. Yes. And I also want to let everyone know that I am going to be interviewed on a radio station in the Seattle, Washington area, November the 15th, in which I will be talking about the book and what's next in our lives.
Nice.
Terrific. So,
I can send a notice to everyone.
Thank you.
okay, and the November 15th, we'll have time to get that in the newsletter. So everyone will have we'll make sure that gets out. So Barbara, I'll talk with you separately, and we make sure we have all the correct information.
the
Yes.
newsletter is getting edited tonight, so I need that information tonight.
Oh, Barbara.
All right, Bruce, I'll send you a text. I'll send you an email.
Okay.
All right?
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Timely.
Have a wonderful weekend.